First, we got institutions investing into Zcash. Then the team fixed some vulnerabilities. And finally, we've got Robinhood listing Zcash. And that's what helps the price outperform. The outperformance is not just today. Zcash was the top performer of all of the Binance listed tokens. Just have a look at this. In the last year, everything was red, but there is one outlier, and that's Zcash. That's why it's worth monitoring. Now, I've been in the crypto space for the last 8 years, and on average, I was able to outperform buying and holding Bitcoin by 2% every month. That's then how that compounds over time. That's then how that looks like together with the additional investments I've made over time. And because of that history, last year I started a copy trading pool. That made 17% while Bitcoin lost 25%. And this year we're doing okay as well. We are up more than 10% while Bitcoin lost 10%. Now let's get back to Zcash. There is the news about the Robinhood listing, but there's also technical analysis. Many traders don't like that we might be hitting a potential resistance, and I tend to agree. This is Zcash in US dollars. Very long term on a logarithmic chart. This is the same on a linear chart. The top in November of last year aligned with the top of January of 2018. The bottoms also aligned pretty well, and when we run the parallel to the top 2016, we again get very similar resistances. So the potential risk reward just from a TA perspective doesn't look that great. Here is Zcash relative to the others market cap. So I always like to look at cryptocurrencies relative to the rest of the market because we have all of that correlation, right? When Bitcoin goes up, when Ethereum goes up, most altcoins go up as well, and vice versa. So we want to know, how does one altcoin do relative to the rest of the market if we ignore the macro environment? And Zcash was a very, very poor investment up until the middle of 2024. And since that peak in November of last year, we tend to rather see lower highs and also lower lows. Here is Zcash relative to Bitcoin. Again, tops align relatively well. Again, potential risk to reward isn't necessarily that great. Now, the tokenomics of Zcash aren't too bad. The inflation rate is the same as for Bitcoin. But we always have to ask ourselves, what's the risk versus reward? How much more upside potential is there really, realistically speaking? And the market cap of Zcash is already at $6 billion. Thus, it's already the 17th largest cryptocurrency. Monero is currently at 7 billion. Bitcoin Cash is at 9 billion. Hyperliquid, one of the most used decentralized finance applications right now, is at 10 billion. Will Zcash really see more utilization than Hyperliquid? I'm not so sure. The social metrics also are slowing down. This here is Lunar Crunch. This is the number of mentions of Zcash across Twitter, etc. The number of creators discussing Zcash is also going down. There's a clear decoupling happening between market cap, market dominance, price, and the social activity. That's not healthy. But really, when we look at what's driving the Zcash price, it's not necessarily that much spot trading. It's rather short-term speculation using the perpetual futures market. And so we should focus on that market much more. On the spot market, we only had 79 million worth of trading volume on Binance. Compare this with the perpetual futures market. Here we had 625 million worth of trading volume. So really, the price discovery happens on the perps, not on the spot market. It's the bets on the price. It's the derivatives that make the price discovery. Now here is Zcash's funding rate over time. We can see that with the prior rally, there was a lot of skepticism. Many people were betting on falling prices. That's why the funding rate is negative. Now the funding rate is a bit more neutral. But again, when the funding rate is negative, we tend to see short squeezes. We tend to see the market makers manipulate the price higher. And that's then when liquidations on the short side appear. The current rally does not yet create that many liquidations. Also have a look at this. This is open interest. So that's the line in green versus the spot price. That's the line in yellow. There's a lot of correlation here, as in the more open interest we have, the more bets are made on Zcash, the higher the price goes. Once attention goes down, once there are less bets on the price, spot price tends to follow as well. So really, it's the derivatives market that drives Zcash. It's not necessarily its adoption as a payment mechanism. Let's have a look if we can maybe time this. Maybe it makes sense to find an entry to short Zcash, because if you're not that bullish on its long-term performance, maybe we can make some money when it goes down by say 50%. Should we just wait until we hit the resistance, or is there maybe a quantifiable way to figure out where Zcash might be going? Now, I like to look at golden crosses and death crosses, so crosses of moving averages. Those kinds of trading signals tend to work pretty well, so especially death crosses, to bet on falling prices. We've made quite a bit of money with shorting a BitTensor recently using that approach. So have a look at this premium signal over here, right? A sell signal for BitTensor. That is when we had a death cross. So that's the best moving averages for BitTensor. In this case, the 6-day crossed the 15-day simple moving average. We went 2x short BitTensor, and that was on April 6th. Feel free to check out the price today. So let me show you the best death cross signal for Zcash. The best combination historically is the 2-day versus the 8-day simple moving average. So this is Zcash versus Bitcoin at the bottom, and here is the portfolio line following that strategy. And we do include trading fees here. We do have our 0.05% trading fees, and we don't even have any financing cost gains, even though we are shorting the vast majority of the time. So this is a rather conservative backtest. Buying and holding Zcash over Bitcoin over the entire time period would have given annualized almost 50% negative. But of course, using this optimized strategy, there is some gain, close to 80%. So let's have a look at Zcash today. We have not yet seen a golden cross. We did get a death cross on the 18th of April. And so I'm simply waiting it out. I wait until Zcash gets a golden cross, potentially rallies a bit further, and then maybe hits again the resistance versus Bitcoin. Who knows, right? This is still potential gain of 76%. But instead of betting on rising prices, I think it's better to keep the macro in mind and just try to find an entry opportunity for a short. But now it's still too early for a short. I wait until the current momentum dies down, until we get the death cross between the 2 and the 8-day simple moving average. And then I will of course post this here in the channel as well. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like. It helps the channel grow. Feel free to also subscribe. I publish here regularly. See you next time here on YouTube, or see you in premium. Cheers.